Hi, I'm the Space Quest Historian, but I play other games as well, and welcome to the second ever installment of SQH Reviews, Save Game Theater. This is the show where I review a game that I have already played, and I get really in there and talk about the inner workings, mechanics, and plot points, and all of that jazz. So there is going to be massive spoilers in this review. It is in fact a review intended for people who have also played the game. That's kind of my thing with these reviews. So if you have not played today's game, please stop watching this video and, go and play it for yourself. Or keep watching and have it utterly ruined for you. Because today we are taking on one of adventure gaming's most celebrated classics, Day of the Tentacle. And this is the first game I ever bought on CD-ROM, and this is the original box that I fished out of my basement, and, it's seen better days. In fact, I can't actually open the box because the right side of it has completely fused together. I mean, apparently it's gotten wet somewhere along the years. I mean, this was bought back in maybe 1994 or something, and it's been, sticker taped together, and it's been sat on, it's been, fluffed up again, and now it just simply won't open. But if you, sort of get your fingers in here, you can get to the original reference card. It's been a bit yellowed, and I don't know what these stains are. I don't drink coffee, so I shudder to think what those might be. And the original manual in this weird elongated shape, and if you looked at the box here, it actually says free hint book enclosed, and this is true. It has, however, also probably due to the same water damage, been irrevocably fused with the game manual itself, so they've become very close friends. It's a really interesting hint book, actually. It's got a walkthrough written as a novelization from Bernard's point of view, and everything else that you really want in a hint book. The Q&A type hints and such. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Actually, I'm getting kind of ahead of myself. Maybe we should start the review with a quick recap of the plot. A quick unnecessary recap of the plot, really, because what adventure game fan on this planet hasn't played Day of the Tentacle yet? Well, anyway, for everyone's benefit, here is a quick and unnecessary plot recap. The game is a sequel to Maniac Mansion from 1987, which was arguably the first ever point-and-click adventure game. While not a straight-up horror game per se, Maniac Mansion nonetheless had a somewhat threatening atmosphere. You were infiltrating a house populated by a homicidal family, and you were almost constantly at risk of being either captured or even killed. In this game, the crazy patriarch of the family, Dr. Fred Edison, had been possessed by a meteor from outer space and kidnapped the hero of the story, Dave's girlfriend, Sandy, with the explicit promise to suck her pretty brains out. Okay. Day of the Tentacle is a bit more lighthearted in a number of ways, which I'll get into later. But in Day of the Tentacle, your quest is to stop the evil purple tentacle from taking over the world.
Take on the world.
What's a tentacle?
Well, the tentacles are two anthropomorphic squid tentacle things. One of them, the green one, is sort of alright. He plays in a band that's actually surprisingly kick-ass.
Wow! This is loud!
The other one, the purple one, is a bit more unfriendly. See, he's always been evil, but ever since he drank from Dr. Fred's sludge-o-matic machine, a machine whose sole purpose, it seems, is to dump toxic waste into the nearby river, he's grown arms, which was seemingly the only thing stopping him from actually taking over the world. And by the way, it's never explained why Dr. Fred even has this machine. Well, not unless you count this explanation.
You have a machine whose sole function is producing toxic waste?
You can't have a high-tech laboratory like this and not spew poisonous filth. All the other mad scientists would laugh.
But humans also created the sludge-o-matic, which made you super intelligent.
Nonsense. I created that myself and sent it back through time. I knew Fred's mad scientist ego would make him use it. How's that for a paradox?
So as you can see, Dr. Fred's a lot less homicidal and scary in this game, although he still ticks all the boxes for being a mad scientist. His solution to stopping the rampaging Tentacle's world conquest? Well, just go back in time and simply turn off the sludge-o-matic machine.
Our only hope now is to turn off my sludge-o-matic machine and prevent the toxic mutagen from entering the river.
Isn't it a little late for that, Doctor?
Of course, that's why I'll have to do it. Yesterday, to the time machine.
Well, this goes less well than expected.
It works! I can't believe it! And they said imitation diamond wasn't good enough. Uh-oh.
So your three protagonists, Bernard, Hoagie, and Laverne, are sent careening wildly through the time swirly thing and end up in 3 different time periods. Hoagie, the quintessential 90s heavy metal roadie, is dumped 200 years in the past in colonial times. Laverne, the batshit medical student with a scalpel fetish, gets stuck 200 years in the future. I mean, literally gets stuck. And Bernard, who's sort of seen as the leader of this group, although that seems to be exclusively because he has a pocket protector, is returned to exactly where he started, in the present. And such begins the epic quest to get Laverne and Hoagie back to the present, so they can try this whole endeavor once again. But since Laverne is now stuck in a tree, and Hoagie is stuck in a time period where there's no electricity, that's easier said than done. Now, Dr. Fred has somewhat conveniently invented a super battery that runs on items available in the late 1700s, which Hoagie can use to plug in his time machine, but he's also forgotten where the plans for that battery are exactly. So once you locate the plans, and that's not really that difficult,
It's Dr. Fred's design for a super battery.
he reappears and yanks the plans from your hands and...
You really flushed them.
Yes!
Down the toilet.
No! Through time!
And this is where the game introduces one of its most celebrated mechanics. You can actually send objects to each other through time. You can send an object from the past into the present, or from the present into the future, or from the future into the past, in any which way you want. And there are 2 ways of doing this. Either you walk the character who's going to be sending the object over to his or her chronogon, put the object in, and then choose the other character who's going to be receiving the object, walk that person over to his or her chronogon, and pick up the object from inside. Now, that's a very convoluted way of doing it. The other method is to actually read the fucking manual, which has a much easier way of doing it. Here, let me show you. See here? See, you can simply dump the item you want to send onto the portrait of the character you want to send them to in your inventory. And it seems obvious, but I've seen professional reviewers who've played this game for 23 years and didn't know this. Oh well, I'm not here to judge. Once Dr. Fred's demonstrated the flush mechanic, you gain control of Hoagie, and you can now freely switch between him and Bernard at any time you want. Laverne's still a bit out of reach because,
Get me out of here! I like trees and everything, but this one has got to go.
Yeah, and this is where the second ingenious part of the game comes into play. See, the entire mansion is open to you right from the get-go. There are no locked doors or secret passages in 2 different time periods, and later on, a 3rd time period. And there's 1,000 puzzle chains that suddenly open up to you, which you are now free to uncover and solve at your own leisure. All of them have to be solved, of course, before you reach the final goal of plugging in all your time machines, but the order in which you solve them is by and large up to you. Now, Day of the Tentacle wasn't the only game to do this. Leisure Suit Larry 6, which was released in the same year, had a similar open-world approach to it, where pretty much the entire game world was open to you right from the start, and you could solve puzzles in pretty much any order you wanted. But few games have done it as well as Day of the Tentacle. Of course, it's essential for characters to swap items across time to solve these puzzles. Here's an example of how one of the early puzzles work. One of the ingredients of Hoagie's super battery is gold. And there's a gold pen inside the conference room in this time period where the founding fathers of the United States are drafting their constitution, apparently. Yeah, edutainment, this is not. Anyway, you need to clear out these distinguished gentlemen. Now, they've got a smoke detector above the fireplace, so they're clearly not happy about the prospect of fire, but John Hancock is freezing, and he really wants the fireplace to get going.
Stop that! It's so cold in here that I'm afraid if I fall asleep, I'll wake up as an ice cube in somebody's drink.
Since they all look up to George Washington, you have to make it look like George is freezing. So how do you do that? Well, you make his teeth chatter. How do you do that? Well, you replace his false teeth with these chattering teeth you find in the present. But how do you get the father of the nation to part with his current false teeth? Well, you offer him an exploding cigar. But how do you get the cigar? Well, this asshole novelty salesman has one, but he won't part with his cigars or his lighter, although he will happily let you have all the cigars you want as long as he gets to blow your head off with them.
Thought I was gonna blow your head off there, didn't you? Well, you were right!
Dickhead. So you swap out the cigar lighter with this novelty flag gun while he isn't looking. So you send the unlit cigar and the lighter off to Hoagie, who then presents it to George Washington. And incidentally, no one seems to bat an eye when Hoagie then pulls a fucking gun on the father of the nation, but at any rate, the exploding cigar does its trick, and you can then give the chattering teeth to him instead of his real dentures. That in turn leads John Hancock and Thomas Jefferson to build a fire after some minor bickering. And then you go ruin their day by covering up the chimney with Hancock's blanket. This clears out the room so you can now get the gold pen, and boom! That's one super battery ingredient down, 2 more to go. And quite ingeniously, one of these ingredients cannot be procured unless you've freed Laverne from the tree and unlocked her as the third playable character, which again is a testament to just how ingenious the design of the game is. And when you free Laverne is really also pretty much up to you, because it's possible to do it pretty much right at the start of the game after you get control of Hoagie. All you have to do is get the red paint from the attic, paint the tree red, and then have Washington cut it down for you. Now this leaves you with 3 time periods to switch between, or you can wait and keep her dangling there for most of the game, solving both Bernard's and Hoagie's sections until you decide to move on to Laverne's for the final thing. Only Hoagie's section is really dependent on Laverne finding his third ingredient, so it's really just a matter of how you want to play. For the most part, items found in Laverne's time are really only used to send back to the other time periods to procure items in the past or present that you then need to send back into the future to help her complete a puzzle solution. And thusly, due to the nature of Laverne being 200 years into the future, her section is a bit more self-contained than Hoagie's and Bernard's. Whereas both Hoagie and Bernard can influence the future, Laverne is more dependent on her 2 compatriots sending her items to complete her section. This is more than made up for, however, by her section being far and above the funniest section of the whole game.
Are you gonna use your scalpel?
No, of course not.
Darn. Do you want to use mine?
No.
In Laverne's future, the Tentacles have succeeded in taking over the world, and human beings are reduced to the status of pets. This is also where the second funniest section of the game takes place. The Human Show. You have to enter a dead, mummified corpse into the contest and make sure he wins the categories of Best Smile, Best Hair, and Best Laugh. The smile you get from Hoagie's time period, where everyone apparently has false teeth. Even this talking horse.
Method. First, develop a rigorous elective grammar. If the elements have NP completeness, the crunchy factor can be ignored. Blah, 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 blah. Whoa.
The hair is a glob of spaghetti that, when sent through the time machine, not only becomes perfectly al dente, but also somewhat suspiciously grows meatballs. And finally, the laugh is procured from what is arguably Bernard's true nemesis, Uzo the Clown.
I hate that clown.
There he is. Anyway, you may have noticed that I said second funniest. Want to know what the first one is? This one. You see, at one point during the game, Dr. Fred gets captured by two insanely funny IRS agents who keep him locked up in the attic, and you have to bust him out. Now, Dr. Fred is out cold, so you need to use a rope and a pulley to get him out. And this is where the animation department at LucasArts truly went out of their way to shine. This bit just had me rolling on the floor as a kid, and to this day, it's the part of the game that I always look forward to the most.
Don't try anything sneaky. Thought I heard something. Everything okay in there? Well, try and keep it down, okay?
Oof! Dr. Fred, are you okay? Dr. Fred? I'd better get him to the lab.
Still cracks me up. Right. Once all the time machines have power, you return to the present and try this shit once again.
Wow.
Great!
Hi!
Now you go back one single day and turn off the Sludge-O-Matic machine, but as you'd expect, things don't really go as planned.
Uh-oh.
Don't worry, guys. This time I know I can stop him.
Uh-oh. I guess we better do something.
Let's go.
No, wait! You can't all go in the same stall! Didn't you see the fly?
We're some kind of monster, dudes.
Boy.
Great.
Okay, at this point, the game boxes you in for the final showdown. You only have the mansion of the present to walk around in, and honestly, you only have a fraction of it, really. You end up confronting the 200-year-old version of Purple Tentacle, who's built a shrinking ray for reasons I'm not even sure he's perfectly clear on. I mean, if it were me, I think having 7 billion cockroach-sized humans running around would be even greater of a nuisance than having them in their normal size, but hey, that's just me.
Why don't you zap Dr. Fred if you hate him so much?
Perhaps that would be entertaining. Oh, drat.
And then you shrink his ass down, and the game is over. Well, almost. We still need to get out of this monstrous mutated predicament. Well, cartoon magic to the rescue.
Idiots! It seems you're not exactly the sideshow attraction you imagined. You're just three complete goofballs stuck in one suit of clothes.
And that actually concludes Day of the Tentacle. I mean, it is, for my money at least, it is an absolute masterpiece of design and technology. I mean, for its time, the graphics were amazing, cartoony, the animation was fantastic, the music was second to none, really. It really captured the action that was going on screen. The digitized sound effects were appropriately cartoony. It was the first real CD-ROM talkie release that LucasArts had done, and it was top-notch voice acting all around. It really is a fantastic game, and it takes everything that, you know, made the original Maniac Mansion kind of wobbly, you know, the random encounters and the Walking Dead scenarios and the deaths, for that matter, took all of those bits out and kept the bits that were interesting, you know, the multi-protagonist thing and the passing of objects and using different characters in tandem with each other to solve puzzles. Great stuff! The original Maniac Mansion not only pioneered pointing and clicking in adventure games, but also the idea of multiple protagonists. In this game, you also controlled 3 characters, out of 7 available, and you could switch freely between them at any time, unless you know, got them killed. Day of the Tentacle came out 6 years later in 1993, and by then LucasArts had made some serious strides, both in terms of technology and design philosophy. Because like I said, you were no longer able to get yourself killed or stuck in an unwinnable state, and the graphics and sound had evolved to employ 256 color VGA and digitized sound effects. It was also the first LucasArts game to see a proper CD-ROM talkie release, and I say proper because, you know, I know that Loom and Secret of Monkey Island both had CD-ROM releases as well, but those don't really count. Monkey Island only had enhanced music and no voices, and Loom had to butcher its script considerably because the game used Red Book audio, meaning you could pop it into your CD player and just play the whole game as a deranged, disjointed radio theater, and that also meant they had to fit all of the game's voices and audio into roughly 70 minutes. Day of the Tentacle, however, had the voices as digital audio files in the game's resources, streaming them through your computer's Sound Blaster card, meaning they didn't have to cut out a single line of dialogue.
There's something funny about that clock.
Some characters from the original Maniac Mansion reappeared, the Edison family, of course, along with one of the 7 kids from the original, the erstwhile Bernard Bernoulli. Dave, the bland hero of the first game, is nowhere to be found, and although Razor, the punk chick, was scheduled for a reappearance, she was eventually cut out during development. Day of the Tentacle was released on diskettes and CD-ROMs simultaneously, the first LucasArts game to do so. Bernard was even voiced by a dude from a TV show I've never heard of, but it was apparently a big deal over in the United States, and it was a big deal to get a quote-unquote real actor in there. Although that's hardly fair because all of the voice actors do a phenomenal job.
It's useless. No one will ever be interested in my design, so I'm ending my novelty inventing career right here in this tacky motel. How appropriate.
Especially the voice actor for Laverne, who you can tell truly relishes her role.
Yoo-hoo, Mr. Tentacle Guy.
What?
Ooh, I don't feel so good. I think I'm going to throw up all over.
Uh-oh.
Now, IMDb states that she was played by an actress named Jane Jacobs, but I'm not about to trust a game credits page that lists 2 different actors voicing the same character. Although other sources seem to also state that it was Jane, so yes, good on Jane, hands down the best voice in the entire game. You may have noticed that the graphics you've seen so far in this video haven't looked very 1993-ish, and that's because I'm playing the remastered version that came out in March of 2016. The graphics have all been redrawn over the old originals, but great care has been taken to preserve the magic of the old game. Nothing's been added, just cleaned up, so it's really the same game, just redrawn for high-definition widescreen. Oh wait, there is one thing changed. the sound effects from the original. They were, for one reason or another, probably fidelity, they were changed, and the new sound effects aren't as good as the original, in my opinion. I mean, just listen to the tentacles moving around. Yeah, right. Where's the... I kind of miss that really heavy, sort of squishy sound. But anyway, luckily the remastered version is fully customizable, which means that you can play the remastered version with the classic sound effects, or the classic graphics, or even the classic UI, and you can mix and match these to suit your preferences.
I'm thirsty.
If I had to point to any faults of the game itself, they would be very nitpicky. I mean, of course, from a narrative standpoint, it doesn't really make any sense that the kids would instinctively know what items to send to each other without being goddamn telepathic, but, you know, Maniac Mansion had the same problem, and you can easily excuse this by the virtue of the game's cartoony logic. The same cartoony logic will probably also sometimes stump you, especially if you were a 13-year-old little foreign kid when you first played this. I mean, wash your car makes it rain is not a colloquialism that's widely known outside the US, even though you could argue that there's a big fat hint to this puzzle right in the present.
Someone wrote, "Wash me in the dust." Some people think that washing one's vehicle will make it rain.
Oh?
Uh-huh.
How about that?
So yeah, I'm gonna give that one a pass. Less obvious is the whole thing about George Washington and his obsession with cherry trees, which the game just assumes everyone knows about.
Lost it, have I? Why, I'd show you a thing or two if there were a cherry tree nearby. But as you can see, well, what do you know? There is a cherry tree out there. Well, let's go chop the sucker down.
Or, to a lesser extent, Ben Franklin's kite experiment, which is probably a little more well known to anyone who ever paid attention in physics class, but hey, I slept through most of it.
Run for your life! Now that was interesting.
Yeah.
The best puzzles in the game are when you use the causality of time to affect objects, such as changing a statue from right-handed to left-handed, or hiding a bottle of wine for 400 years to turn it into vinegar, or even freezing a hamster in an ice machine for 200 years and then defrosting him in a futuristic microwave. Day of the Tentacle regularly tops these, best adventure games of all time lists, and in my opinion, deservedly so, because this is a very, very, very good game. It is, in fact, one of the best adventure games of all time, and so there is a good reason why it's on the top of those lists. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this. If you, for some reason, haven't played Day of the Tentacle, and you want a glimpse into just how tight design and good puzzles and graphics and music and artwork and voices and all of this can come together into one amazingly cohesive whole, then you really owe it to yourself to pick up Day of the Tentacle. You might feel a bit cheated now since I've just spoiled the entire plot for you, but I did warn you at the start of the video, so... So if you are going to pick it up, might I recommend that you actually pick up the remastered version. It's a much better remastering than Grim Fandango got a bit earlier, because you can pretty much customize the entire game to play exactly as it was back in 1993, if you want, or you can, play with the, redrawn graphics and all that, or just, mix and match. So the remastered version is actually a very, very good bang for your buck. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have. So thank you for tuning into the second ever episode of SQH Plays Save Game Theater. I might come up with a better title at some point, but anyway, I'm sticking to that one right now. So please, like, subscribe, do whatever you kids do, but do leave me a comment. I do love the comments, and I do want to know what your reactions to playing Day of the Tentacle is. Is it really the masterpiece that I'm, outing it as being? I fucking hope you do. Well, take care, and I'll see you around the Chrono Stream.